Good morning. My name is Allison Shapira, and I am a recovering opera singer. When I left the field of opera, I never thought that what I learned as a singer would be relevant in the real world. I just thought it would be my fun fact at corporate icebreakers or my secret weapon at karaoke. And it is. Then I got my first job in the real world. And on the first day of that first job, I found out I would have to give speeches on behalf of my organization. How many of you remember that first speech you had to give on behalf of something else? How did it feel? I was terrified, but I knew how to sing and dance on stage. So if they wanted me to, I could put on a green ball gown and stand in front of 2,000 people and sing, "Oh mio papino caro, mi piace bello, bello." Thank you. Thank you. That was my comfort zone. But to put on a business suit and stand on stage with no background music and say something I had written, not Puccini, I couldn't do it. I was terrified. So I started to learn about public speaking. And the more I learned about public speaking, the more I realized I already knew about public speaking. From my musical training, I knew how to stand on stage and use eye contact to create an emotional bond with my audience. I knew how to use breathing and breath support to add power and confidence and authority to my voice. I had stage presence. I simply had to convert it to executive presence. So I started to make that switch, and my bosses started to take notice. So they started to come to me for help with their public speaking. And then people outside of my office started to come to me for help, and a pivotal thing happened. I charged them money. And all of a sudden, I was an entrepreneur. Fast forward nearly 14 years. I teach public speaking and presentation skills all around the world. And it's not simply standing on a stage such as this one and giving a presentation. It's any time we walk into an office with a client or prospect, even one-on-one. Essentially, it's how we communicate with others in a professional setting, walking on stage or walking into a conference room. What I'm going to talk to you about today and work with you on this afternoon is executive presence. We'll demystify it, break it down into 5 concrete components that you can learn and apply to yourself so that every single time you speak with a client or prospect or your colleagues, you speak with confidence and authenticity and represent yourself and represent your product in the most powerful way possible. This afternoon, you'll learn how to apply those skills, and I'll teach you some of the breathing techniques of opera singers in order to change the way you speak so that you speak with power. And you'll leave today with so many skills, not just from myself, but from everyone who's speaking, with more confidence and more authenticity in every single client interaction. Executive presence is kind of like leadership in that everyone defines it in their own way. Everyone teaches it in their own way. Some people say, well, I don't know how to define it, but I know it when I see it. And we certainly know when we don't see it. Some call it gravitas. Some call it grace under fire. I define executive presence as a way of speaking and acting that makes others take notice and listen. A way of speaking and acting. Not acting like theater, but acting as in being in a way that makes people take notice and listen. And it is the first thing the client notices about you from the moment you walk into the room or the moment you start to speak on the phone. Since my background in this comes from opera, let's look at the idea of stage presence. What gives an opera singer stage presence? I want you to imagine a first soprano walking out on stage at the Met What is it that gives her stage presence? Maybe it's that piercing gaze with the audience. Maybe it's the power of her posture and the way she stands. Maybe it's her passion for the music and her confidence in her years of training. Maybe that's a little too dramatic for a client presentation. But each of those elements can actually apply to executive presence in a very powerful way. Now I want you to think about someone with executive presence, a woman or man who you work with, who you know. Think of someone in your mind right now who has great executive presence. I want you to think about how she walks into a room, how she speaks, the tone of her voice, the rhythm of her voice. Think about her confidence in herself and her knowledge of her subject when speaking to the client. All of those components comprise executive presence. So let's learn how to break them down and how to apply each one in our everyday interactions with our clients and our prospects and our colleagues. This is something we use every day. We're using our executive presence in networking situations. We're using our executive presence when we're sitting next to someone on the Acela Express to New York and happen to catch a glimpse of their business card and recognize this is a great opportunity. I break it down into 5 elements. The first component of executive presence is your confidence. Your confidence in yourself and the value of the information that you're selling. This is not arrogance, this is not bluster, this is not overconfidence. This is you looking inward and asking yourself, why do I do what I do? How do I live my values every day? First of all, what are my values? Secondly, how do I live those values every single day when I go out and meet with a client or prospect? Why do I do what I do, and why do I believe in what I do? When I teach public speaking, I always ask people to ask themselves, why you? Why are you passionate about this subject? Because if you're not enthusiastic about what you do, you will be ineffective in sales. Unless you're a really good actor. But it's generally not a strategy that I recommend because we see through inauthenticity. We can tell when someone's giving us a canned presentation. We can read through it in that email. We can see it in person. We can sense it over the phone. So your confidence is an authentic connection with why you're passionate about what you do and why you believe in the product that you're selling. Your enthusiasm is your best, most powerful sales tool, hands down. Which is why it's worth spending a few minutes in preparation of your sales call, asking yourself, okay, why me? Why am I passionate about this? Why am I passionate about the client and what they do and my ability to help them? Your confidence is so incredibly important when you walk into the room. The second component of executive presence, which will feel a little bit more like that's part of your normal sales process, is your content. You have to know your subject. But it's deeper than that. It's not simply knowing more than there is to know than anyone would know about the product that you're selling. How many of you have somebody in your office who knows everything there is to know about your product or service, and there's no way you're putting them in front of a client? I gauge by your laughter that you know what I'm talking about. It's not simply knowing everything there is to know about a subject. It's about being able to speak clearly, confidently, and concisely about what you do and how that helps solve your clients' challenges or problems in their language. When I was first looking for clients, when I started out on my own, I would meet with people, I'd find out about their challenges, and then I'd come home and write a one-page brochure about what I did using their language. Because when we speak their language, we're able to connect with them. A lot of times we'll use jargon, industry jargon, we'll use acronyms, we'll use very specific terms without thinking, what is our audience, what language does our audience speak? What do they relate to? I was working with a client preparing for a sales call where they said, well, I'm speaking to the CEO, but he's bringing his CFO as well, and the CEO really doesn't know the details, the financial details, so how do I speak two languages? I have to speak to the CFO, but the CEO is the one who hired me. And we talked about what's your strategy for speaking those specifics, but always bringing it up to a higher level, looking at the big picture so that you include everyone in the conversation. So thinking about preparing to go out on a sales call and asking the content, what are we going to present, always has to think about how do we say it clearly and concisely in a way that addresses the client's challenges in the language of your client. So we walk in, we have confidence, we speak clearly and concisely, but when we walk into a room, that's not the first time we start speaking. We walk into a room with our reputation preceding us, the reputation of our organization, the reputation of the previous colleague that may have unsuccessfully called on that client. Maybe your reputation is the only reason why you got the meeting. Maybe, despite your reputation, you still got the meeting with the client, and this is your one chance to overcome something that's happened in the past, some negative incident that happened with your organization. So when we walk into a room, it's not that we turn on our executive presence and that's it. It's on. We're sitting in the car. Okay, let me get ready. All right. Your executive presence is something you're always building, like your most important relationships. You're carefully building your reputation, your connections with others, your relationships, so that when you walk into the room, your presence, your reputation precedes you. This is a long-term process. It's not something you simply turn on and off. The fourth component of executive presence is more physical. Thank you so much. Interactions with others. You have your confidence. You have your content, knowing and being able to speak clearly and concisely. Your interactions with others. Thank you so much. You ready for the fourth? Okay. Your body language. That's what starts speaking. When you walk into the room, the moment you walk into the room, or the moment you start to speak on the phone, conference call, phone call, virtual call, every part of you is communicating. Do you walk in with papers hanging out all over the place and you get this crumpled business card and you hand a crumpled business card to the client and you're stressed because you couldn't find parking and you're running late and you know you don't have a lot of time for the meeting? Or do you walk in confident, relaxed, smiling, nice firm handshake, sit down, everything's in its place? Every part of you is communicating the moment you walk into a room. Your attire, your clothing is communicating. Your smile, your body language is communicating. How you sit, how you hold yourself is communicating, and it's either reinforcing and enhancing your words, or it's completely undermining the words that you're saying. Show me for a second what's really bad body language to have if you're sitting at a table, across a table from a client. Show me bad body language. Yeah. That's it. Some of you are a little too good at that. Okay. Now show me a stronger, more powerful body language to have in front of the client. I see some people leaning in, sitting tall, and you can sit tall, you can stand tall. If you wonder what kind of body language you can use and how to get into that position, I'll show you a quick trick. Everyone, raise your hands up over your head. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Lower your arms, try not to hit anyone, and keep your rib cage where it is. Keep your rib cage lifted. Excellent. Wow, you look like you're ready to take on the world. This posture, you can keep it seated or standing. It lifts your body, it opens up your rib cage so you can take in deeper breaths, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but it also resonates confidence to yourself and to your audience. Your body language is communicating with your audience at every single moment. You want to make sure that it's reinforcing your words. Now, the body language component also comprises your physical presence in the room. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but think about whether you at some point, maybe once or twice when the client is talking, wasn't really listening. Maybe you were thinking of the next thing that you wanted to say, or making sure that everything is crossed off the list, or maybe thinking about something else you didn't do that morning. Oh, you forgot to brush your teeth. Wow, that's really going to have an effect. Oh, yes, of course, yes, I'm happy to help you with that. Physical presence is so important. Not just eye contact, but really listening to what people are saying so that you can use their language when you submit the proposal later on. And so that you make sure that when it's your time to speak, you're speaking directly to the challenges and pain points that they're facing. Your physical presence. And if your colleagues are speaking, being present, listening to your colleagues speak instead of on your smartphone, checking something else. So that physical presence is so important. The fifth and final component of executive presence is critical. It's one that we all recognize, but never really know how to affect. It's our voice, our tone of voice. You can tell by my tone of voice if I'm confident or nervous, if I'm happy or sad. All of that comes through my tone of voice. You can also tell if I know what I'm talking about, because if I don't, maybe my voice will go up at the end of a sentence. I think that we're the best solution for your business. Versus, we are the best partners to help your business grow. It's not just the words, it's your tone of voice. You also don't want to let your voice trail off at the end of a sentence, which is vocal fry. So you don't want it to go up, and you don't want it to drop off. But you want to have a strong, confident tone of voice when you speak. And I can create those sounds on demand because I know what produces them. It's a factor of breathing. The way you physically take in and use air has an effect on how you sound. Let me try an experiment. I'm going to repeat the same phrase twice. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, hear that phrase twice, and then tell me what I did differently. Okay? Close your eyes. Good morning, how are you today? Good morning, how are you today? Open your eyes. What was the difference? A smile. One smile completely changed my voice. A physical attribute changed the way I sound. Now think about the way you sit and carry yourself when you're on a phone. When you're calling a client, what's your posture? What are you normally doing? Maybe you're like this, you may be hunched over, maybe you've got the phone. Well, I don't know if we do this anymore, but our posture, we're not smiling. Before I have a phone call with a client or prospect, I stand up to take the call, and I smile. So when I pick up the phone, if they're calling me, I go, "This is Allison," because it opens up my voice, it opens up my energy, it builds my executive presence. Especially the more senior we become in our own careers and the more senior of the people we're talking to, we have the ability to influence the energy in the room the moment we walk in. Our executive presence can influence the energy in the room and make it an exciting energy or make it nervous and tense. That comes from you. Now, there's some really interesting research out there about voice and the effect our voice has on our leadership success. 2 different studies, and I'm happy to share the details of those studies with you later. A study of male CEOs found that the deeper the voice, the higher the annual compensation. Say that again. Deeper the voice, the higher the annual compensation. Now, a second study looked at male and female voices in leadership and found that in both business and politics, a deeper voice correlated to greater success in business and politics. Now, what I don't want you to do is start talking like this. Hello, hi, I'm Allison Shapira, and I'm ready to get your business. No. It's not about creating that, making that false voice. It's simply about learning proper breathing techniques so that when you speak, wherever your voice is, whether it's a higher pitched or lower pitched voice, it's bigger. It's richer and fuller. It's your voice at your best as opposed to your voice at your most nervous. So using those deeper breathing techniques, some people call it diaphragmatic breathing. Some call it belly breathing. Some call it yoga breathing. I simply call it deep breathing. And this afternoon, I will teach you those secret breathing techniques of opera singers so that when you walk into a room, you can use those deep breathing techniques and speak to a client with power, confidence, and authenticity from the very first moment that you say hello. The 5 components of executive presence. Your confidence in yourself and why you do what you do. The value that you bring to the client gives you that confidence when you walk in the room. Your content, not just having a list of points you want to cover, but being able to speak clearly and concisely in the language of your audience. Your interactions with others, the reputation that precedes you, and everything you do along the way with all of your client interactions to build that reputation of trustworthiness with your colleagues. Your body language, everything about you that's speaking beside your words when you walk into a room. And then the power of your voice as a way to reinforce your message and convey confidence and authenticity. None of this is about creating a false leadership persona that you put on this fake jacket and walk into the room and try and show off. It's simply about being you at your best and your most authentic, recognizing that your enthusiasm is your most powerful sales tool. And when you recognize that and bring that with you every time you interact with a client or prospect, it will absolutely help you win more business. And it will help you get more referrals because of the reputation that you are creating for yourself, for your company, for your team, and for the mission of your company. Did I tell you why I left the field of opera? No, I didn't say that. Okay. I left the field of opera because I lost my passion for it. And because my teacher told me at one point that I wasn't good enough for a singing career. And for 10 years, I believed her. Then about 5 years ago, I learned how to play the guitar. And I realized I was never supposed to be an opera singer. I'm a folk singer. I've just been using the wrong instrument. And the reason why is absolutely critical for why we're here today. Opera is about perfection. It's the art form. You go to an opera, you sit in the audience, you connect with it, but from afar. Folk music is about authenticity and passion. We are not the best musicians, believe me. But we are the most authentic. We are the music of the people, and you can sit down next to us on a grassy field and play music with us. And that's the way we connect with people, through the things that we have in common. Communication is not about opera. It's not about perfection. It's about authenticity. You don't have to nail it perfectly and be completely 100% in everything. But if you know what you're talking about and you love what you do and you share that with your clients, then you are incredibly powerful. So while I started this morning by singing a little bit of opera for you, that's not my authentic voice. Can I share my authentic voice with you? Excellent. I think I saw a guitar somewhere here. Thank you. I'm going to play you one verse of a song I wrote. Thank you. I didn't need that anyways. I'm going to play you one verse of a song that I wrote about 4.5 years ago when I quit my job, put everything I owned into storage, left my apartment, and said, I'm going to take a time out. I'm going to go to Europe with my guitar and figure it out when I get back. I wrote this song on the steps of the Paris Opera House, where I had always dreamed of performing. Inside. Sometimes you get so close to your dream, you find out it's better on the outside than on the inside. This is called All Along. So I left a great apartment on a quiet Cambridge street, and I moved in with some good friends who had a room just for me. And I bought a round-trip ticket, all of Europe for me to see. Packed my life into a suitcase, left Boston by the sea. And everywhere I turned to, the answer was the same. Forget about your worries, just get up on that plane. There I was in an airport bar with my backpack and guitar, saying this is who you are. And all along I found myself searching for you, burning for you. And all along I told myself you would appear. If only I'd stop my searching, I'd find you here.